Since the dawn of this nation, we Americans have had a need to rebel. We were the revolutionaries in more ways than just one. We fought the system with our lives, with our honor, and with courage. We took down the British rule of the colonies. We protected the world from communism. We fought hard in the war to end all wars, and we destroyed the Axis alliance in defense of the free world when we had to do it again. We Americans are rebels, but more than that, we Americans are rascals. But this feeling of rebellion had to come from somewhere. Americans needed a symbol, someone to look up to as the first. But who could this person be? They'd have to be an outlier. They'd have to be an outcast. They'd have to be Thomas Morton, America's first rascal. Thomas Morton was an early colonist of America. Born in England in the late 1570s, Morton and his family were Anglican, which shared traits of Catholicism and spiritualistic paganistic beliefs. Because of this, he and his family did not follow the status quo of the puritanical belief system that seemed to surround his every waking moment, something that becomes evident from his time in the colonies. Even from his first trip to the colonies, Morton had outlandish views. As seen in his book, The New English Canon, Morton argued that the natives were
much more civilized and humanitarian
than his
intolerant European neighbors.
This is not considered the norm back then. Even today, there is still a sense of superiority over others. But Morton felt otherwise, and fought hard for the natives. Throughout his entire time in the colonies, Morton displayed actions that would have considered him an outcast. As discussed in Thomas Morton, a biography about his life by Donald Connors, Morton, once discovering his business partner was selling indentured servants into slavery, had to do something. Fighting the common-held intolerance and beliefs of the time, Morton organized a revolt, driving his partner out of the colony, leaving him in charge of it, which was now renamed as Marymount. Settled next to the puritanical Plymouth colony, Marymount was a site of great heresy in their eyes. The puritanical views of the neighbors and the views of Morton could not coincide, and led to great strife. Now, so far we've discussed how Morton's considered America's first rascal. But for what? Now that we are at his colony of Marymount, and discussing the relationship between the neighbors, the real resistance can begin. From the very beginning, Morton tried to create a utopia, a place where all men were free and there was an integration with the native tribes. In some of the greater acts of heresy in the Puritans' eyes, the colonies took part in blasphemy after blasphemy. As the puritanical governor of Plymouth, William Bradford, exclaimed in his History of Plymouth Plantation,
"They set up a maypole, drinking and dancing about it many days together, inviting the Indian women for their consorts, dancing and frisking together like so many fairies, or furies rather, and worse practices, as if they had anew revived and celebrated the feasts of ye Roman goddess Flora, or ye beastly practices of ye mad Bacchanalians."
In Marymount, the colony celebrated May Day, a joint celebration with the native tribes on the 1st of May, as a day to be merry, drink the day away, and for the male colonists to find suitable brides in the native population. In addition to stealing away fur sales and exports, the Puritans considered these celebrations as heathenistic and considered it the last straw. On the 2nd May Day, as they set up a large maypole adorned with antlers, the Puritans took action. With a small militia, the colony was taken and the maypole chopped down, as Morton was exiled to the Isles of Shoals. Expected to starve, Morton did the exact opposite. He befriended the natives who gave him food, and eventually, on his own, he escaped to England. But, unlike others, Morton did not give up. He returned back to Marymount to fight the Puritans again. Subsequently, he was arrested, jailed, banished, and then exiled from the colonies to England. But Morton still didn't give up. From England In one final act of defiance and as a display of the rapscallion he was, through use of his legal background, Morton fought hard for the royal charter of the Massachusetts Bay Colony to be revoked. When he accomplished that, Morton single-handedly turned Plymouth from its once proud Puritan colony to a sad, starving colony of woe, causing many to move from Massachusetts to Connecticut. Morton led a very mischievous life, and through it challenged the commonplace beliefs of the Puritans and the world around him. As he lived his life in early America, the rebellious nature was stoked by the world around him. It was through this that Thomas Morton, the host of Merrymount, can be considered America's first rascal.